Hey there, welcome or welcome back to my channel, Diana the Book Hunt. Today I want to do my November reads with you where I'm talking about books that I finished between the 1st and the 16th of November. Some of the books that I've already discussed in videos that I did previously to this one, so I'm going to link them above in the cards and I'll let you know when that's happening. And for the rest, I'm just going to discuss them in more detail so you know whether I like them or not. So let's just dive into all of the books that I have for you today. The first book that I picked up was by Monica James. It's called Beyond the Roses, and I actually picked this one up because Cheyenne from That Tall Book Girl recommended it on her channel as an emotional read that she absolutely loved. Typically those types of reads really work for me, so I was really hoping to get a 4 or 5 star read out of this one, but unfortunately I didn't love it as much as I had hoped. I gave it 3.5 stars. The book centers around the main character Lola, who she's diagnosed at the beginning of the book with an inoperable tumor, a brain tumor. So she is essentially terminally ill. And what she decides to do is she wants to do something valuable with her time and signs up as a volunteer, I think, with this summer camp for terminally ill children. And that is where she meets Dr. Roman Archibald. The guy with the fancy name. I really love the name Roman, by the way, but that's beside the point. So she meets this doctor who he works with the children there, and he actually has had experience with the type of tumor that she has. So he kind of makes a proposal to her that she needs to ponder to see whether she wants to do it or not. It's a proposal to do some kind of an experimental trial to see whether he can help her with the tumor that she has. And that's where we see a professional but also a personal relationship start to develop between them. What I did love about the book is that it really got me. It got me. The emotional part really did get me. I did cry a little bit at the end of this book. But what didn't work for me is that I think halfway throughout the book, I already knew, I kind of suspected what was going to happen. And knowing what's going to happen within such an emotional book can work two ways. It can either prepare you and you feel like, okay, I knew that this was going to happen, but it's still like a very pivotal point within the book, so you really appreciate it, or it kind of ruins the fun for you. And I think that with me, it was the second thing that happened. So that's why I didn't give this book more than 3.5 stars. It's definitely a very impactful read, but I just had hoped for more out of it. The second book that I picked up, I'm going to be honest, I don't know why I picked this book up, because the author is actually one that I don't think is the author for me. The author is Tessa Bailey. I've read a couple of her books before and I haven't really enjoyed them. It Happened One Summer is probably one of the most disappointing reads that I've ever read. So yeah, I don't know why I picked this book up. The book is called Riskier Business, and I think it's considered a novella, if I'm not mistaken, or like a very short novel. The book is about a girl or a woman. She's a woman. Her name is Ruby, and she's kind of a hustler. She does some pool hustling, and she is in a relationship with an FBI guy. So she has kind of left her hustling days behind her. And what happens is her father, who is also a hustler, he comes into the picture and provides her an opportunity that she doesn't want to refuse, because she's going to get something out of the situation that she has wanted her whole life. So she kind of feels like she's backed up in a corner and she really needs to do this job even though she's already out of the business. And I think that the story really focuses more on those aspects within the book than the romance, because she's already in a relationship with the guy in question. What was his name? Trent, or I don't know what his name was, but basically we were following more the situation with Ruby, her dad, Ruby, her family dynamic, the hustle that they need to do, and not really too much the relationship between the two. The relationship between the two was really remarked within the book with all the steamy times that there were going on between them, and that is basically it. So I didn't really enjoy this book. I think on Goodreads I gave it 3 stars because it wasn't bad, but Honestly, for me personally, I think this is a typical 2-star read because I didn't enjoy it. It's very forgettable, and I just didn't enjoy the writing all too much as well. So yeah, this wasn't the hit for me. Let me put it like this. Next up, I'm just going to mention this book. The book is called Tragic by Devaney Perry. I have a dedicated reading vlog that I did on this book, which was my weekly Sunday small town romance vlog. I'm going to link it above in the card so you can check it out. I gave it 3 stars. It wasn't a favorite of mine. Out of the 3 books within this series, the Lark Cove series, this is my least favorite one. But it was a fun time, but there were just some things that I didn't vibe with very well. So if you're interested in knowing my opinion about this book, you can go ahead and check out the video in the cards. The next book I'm going to talk about is the only 5-star read that I had so far this month. It's a book that I've been putting off reading because I knew that it was going to be a heavier read, but I definitely wanted to finish it before the end of the year, so I picked it up this month. The book is called My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell, and I absolutely love that it matches my sweatshirt right now. The book is one which blew up on, I think, every platform last year, and I'm not sure whether it won any awards in terms of Goodreads or something like that, but it's definitely a book that was very impactful for many people. The book centers on Vanessa, who we see in the book in past and present chapters. In the past chapters, we view her relationship that she had as a teenager with one of her teachers. Be forewarned that this book, if you haven't read it yet, has grooming, and there's just many trigger warnings within this book that involve a relationship between an older man and a younger teenager. So it's a very difficult read at times, and there's a lot of manipulation going on, a lot of things that involve the grooming situation that the teacher does to this young teenager, and it's very harrowing, very kind of uncomfortable to read, but it's also very impactful and at times even very relatable, especially for a woman to read, because I think that a lot of women, if you think back to your teen years, will have some kind of an experience with conversations that may have felt uncomfortable with someone who is older than you, and that's why I found it relatable at times. And I do have to say that this book really left me speechless at times. What I failed to mention is that in the present chapters, what we see is that the teacher in question is going to be not prosecuted, but he was accused of sexual harassment by other students. So on the cusp of the Me Too movement, he is basically accused of sexual harassment, and this is the moment where Vanessa kind of looks back and thinks about her own relationship with him, and she tries to reconcile her feelings with what has happened to her, whether she feels like she was sexually harassed as well, or whether she experiences her experiences in a different way. And this is the part where you kind of really feel for the character, that she does not always seem to recognize that she was manipulated. She doesn't always feel like the guy had the upper hand, because she believes that she consented to some of the things that he did to her. And I was really I really felt so much compassion, but also so much frustration with the situations that she was describing. So this is definitely a 5-star read for me. I do have to say that it's not a comfortable 5-star read, because obviously for 5 stars, typically I'll give 5 stars to a book that I really enjoyed, or a book that really left me feeling giddy or very, very nice inside. This is the typical 5-star read, where it's a 5-star read because the story was extraordinary. It left me feeling uncomfortable in a way that has made me want to think about situations like this one, and has made me want to explore my feelings on the topic. So it's not an enjoyable 5-star read, but it's a 5-star read that really makes you think ahead of what is going on within this world, and what is my position on this specific topic. So yeah, it's definitely a very impactful read. I read another such book which has left me feeling many types of emotions, from frustration to even resentment to compassion to understanding, and just so many different types of emotions within this book, to be honest. The book is called Kindred by Octavia E. Butler, and I read this book because I have a challenge for myself that I want to complete by the end of the year, and this was one of the books that is part of this challenge. The book is one which centers on Dana, who is a black woman living in the 70s, in the 1970s, and she's married to a white man. She, due to some circumstances, is thrown into a time travel loop where she is transported into the early 1800s, pre-Civil War Maryland. And the interesting thing is that she ends up within like the scenario of family, where she knows that she's dealing with her forefathers, so with her her family tree, basically. And the interesting thing is that obviously pre-Civil War Maryland is still extremely racist. There's still slavery going on, and she is a black woman with modern beliefs who is thrown into a situation where she is regarded as a slave, and she needs to she needs to adapt to some kind of an attitude that will help her progress within the time travel period, but also not lose her modern morals, beliefs, and the core that is her, basically. So there are a lot of situations that arise because she does time travel back and forth. So she goes back to the modern times as well, and that's where she has interactions with her husband and needs to explain to him what has happened. And there's also a certain situation where he actually time travels with her. So she is there married to a white man, but actually in a time period where that just does not exist as a concept. This book is just one which makes you think about so many concepts regarding slavery, regarding that period of time, regarding how modern times have evolved, but at the same time we're still at some in some ways or another still stuck thinking about the same things or feeling the same things that should have already been obliterated many years ago. And there's just so many punchlines that kind of hit you in the gut within this book, and there's so many beautiful beautiful expressions that really warm your heart towards how beautifully a book that was written in the 70s was so much forward thinking within this topic of conversation. So I was really impressed by it. I gave it 4.5 stars, and I definitely am going to pick up more by this author because I do have a lot of books off of her backlist on my Storytel app, so I'm definitely going to continue on with reading more books by this author. Next up, I'm just going to mention the next book because I already have a Christmas themed, a holiday themed video that I posted where I discuss it in more length. The book is called The Bookshop Christmas by Rachel Burton. This book I gave 4 stars. I did like it. It's a pretty cozy romance which involves a bookshop, an author signing, the author and the bookshop keeper have a romance, and there's also a lot of Christmas themed kind of Easter eggs which are thrown into the book. So yeah, I definitely enjoyed this one. And the next book that I'm going to talk about is another Christmas themed romance that I did mention in that video, but I didn't discuss it in length because I hadn't yet picked it up. The book is called A Christmas Clash by Suzanne Park. This book, I don't know why, but I thought that it was going to be a new adult book, but it wasn't. It was definitely a young adult book. And sometimes I feel like the synopsises that were posted on Goodreads or on the book themselves are just so misleading because what it said is something like 2 rivals need to work together to overcome a mutual evil or something like that, because the theme within the book, or actually what the book revolves around, is there's two families. One of them is Korean, one of them is Chinese. They both have restaurants in the same mall, and the mall is going to get demolished and they're going to lose their livelihood. So the children within those families, Chloe from the Korean family and Peter from the Chinese family, they kind of need to team up to try and save the day and prohibit the demolition from happening in some way. And what really bothered me is that the rivalry between the two families is between the parents. It's not between the children. So the children are not rivals at all. They actually already from the start of the book really hint towards liking each other, and both of them, okay, they sneak around because their families obviously don't have a good relationship together, so they kind of sneak around, but there is just no rivalry to be felt. So I didn't feel like this was rivals to lovers. I also didn't feel like it was enemies to lovers at all. It was more like cutesy young adult story where two characters just fall in love with a mutual cause in between them. And the Christmassy things, like the Christmassy themes, kind of fell away because they had this very big ambition and goal to help their families. Within the mall, there was this Santa photo kind of booth where Chloe was working, that kind of hinted towards the Christmas period. And then Peter did some kind of virtual reality thing within the mall that is also a Christmas themed attraction. But other than that, it just didn't feel like a Christmassy type of read, to be honest. So I was not really happy with this read when it comes to my holiday spirit picks that I have for this year. I give it 3 stars, and it's probably just not targeted for people like me. So I'm not the target or audience for these types of stories. Probably other people might like it, or maybe younger people will like it. It just wasn't for me. It was not my type of book. Next up, I finally read the 4th book within the Hades series by Tate James. It's called Timber. The story is about a woman who is kind of the head of an organization that is a mob style organization, and it's a white shoes story between herself and 3 guys. And if I have to be honest, this is, out of the 4 books, probably my least favorite book. I did give it 4 stars because it was a great resolution to the series. A lot of things that were kind of hanging as loose threads, and basically the situation that was the big reveal in the 3rd book was really well resolved in the 4th book. And we also find out how the white shoes will progress for the future for them, because I think it was hinted in the 2nd book that she wasn't sure whether she was going to pick one of them eventually or just stick with all 3 of them. And in this book we find out what the situation will be. I cannot talk about any more things that involve the plot of the book because it's the 4th book within a series, so I don't want to spoil anything for anyone. But I do want to say that this book really dragged on for too long, if you ask me, and there was too much spice. Like, I don't want to say too much spice because obviously spicy scenes are really nice to read, and it kind of gives the story some kind of a balance between maybe too much action or too much emotional damage or whatever. But within this story, I think that should the author have chosen another path where she focused more on the plot and less on the steam, it would have been better. So maybe less steamy scenes would have been better in this situation, and because there was just too much. She could have stuck with like 2 or 3. There were like, I don't know how many. So basically, yeah, I did give it 4 stars because I overall really enjoyed the series. I enjoyed how it wrapped up, but it wasn't my favorite. The next read that I had is one which was very surprising in one way. The thing is, I started to read this book because of the challenge that I have for myself that I'm going to reveal in the next couple of weeks. And this book, I started to read it, and I think halfway through, I was like, really, this sounds very familiar. It sounds like another book that I've read. I really need to look it up. And then what I found is that I had it in my ebook library. So I had read that book, but I've read it maybe like in 2016 or 2017, if I'm not mistaken. So I've really totally forgotten that I've read this book. The book is called Until November by Aurora Rose Reynolds. And I think that I made a note for myself that at that time I gave it 4 stars. But now that I read it, it really didn't stand the test of time, if you ask me, because I really didn't enjoy it all too much. I think I gave it 3 stars this time around, but now that I'm considering it, it really doesn't deserve 3 stars, in my opinion at least. The book centers around this woman who had a very bad breakup with her partner, and she moves over to her dad's, a dad that she doesn't know very well because her mom kind of kept their relationship, um, she kind of influenced her not to have a good relationship with her dad. But yeah, she moved over to his place, to recover from the bad situation that she went through with her partner, and also with the bad relationship that she has with her mom. And her dad promised her that she can work at his club, but she didn't know that his club is actually a strip club. And when she goes to her first day of work at the strip club, there's this guy who is observing her, and he makes a lot of assumptions about her, and he kind of badmouths her. He kind of assumes that she is her dad's like plaything, because he doesn't know that the guy has a daughter. And the situation revolves from there, and it just the guy was too alpha for me, and it kind of I found out that this book was written in 2013, and it was really the type of stories that were very prominent at that time, where we had a lot of alpha heroes, asshole-ish type of behavior, and that was something that was very attractive for women for some reason or not. And um, I really just didn't like this book. I don't know how to express my feelings about this one. It just didn't stand the test of time, is I think the best description that I can give for it. And yeah, while I did give it 3 stars on Goodreads, I'll probably kind of modify it to 2 stars because I really didn't like it. The last book I'm going to talk about is one that really pains my heart to say that I didn't enjoy it as much as I had hoped, because I really had high hopes for it. The book is called Do You Take This Man by Denise Williams. The book is about a wedding planner, like an event planner, and a wedding officiant, and the woman is the wedding officiant. And they have this kind of an enemies with benefit situations going on. I was really intrigued by this kind of concept because I've never read a book which involves a wedding officiant. And also, I think that in the synopsis, it kind of said that the wedding officiant, her name is RJ. She's also a lawyer, and while she describes herself as a romantic, she's kind of jaded by love. So I was really intrigued to read about how the man, in this case, his name is Lear, how Lear is going to break down her walls. I started to read this book and I was like, okay, I do get the enemies with benefits thing, like the chemistry between them is palpable. You can feel that they do have an attraction towards each other. And I really did like Lear as a character within the book. But RJ, I kind of felt like she was very passive aggressive a lot of times, with not a very clear defined reason. We do find out that she was kind of burned by a previous relationship, but there was not a lot of depth as to why she was burned. And it kind of made her seem very standoffish, very bitchy at times towards Lear, while Lear was kind of the sunshiny and very kind of approachable type of character. So that really left me feeling very upset, because had we had more background as to why RJ was feeling like she needed to close herself off, or why she felt like she was scared to go into a commitment with Lear, then I would have given this book 5 stars for sure. At the moment, I've given it 3.5 stars. I think that it just wasn't the best. I really, like I mentioned, I had really high hopes for this one, and I'm just disappointed that I didn't enjoy it as much as I did. But it may work for you. You can check it out on Goodreads to see whether it's going to be something that you're going to enjoy. But yeah, unfortunately, until this point, I didn't really have that many of enjoyable reads for this month. So I really hope that in the next portion of the month, I'm going to be able to turn this around and read a couple of hits, really like 5 or 6 star reads for me. So I'm going to keep you posted. I'm going to post my November wrap up at the end of the month, and in the meantime I am going to be posting more regularly. I think I mentioned it in a couple of videos before that I'm going to try from next week on to post 3 videos a week. And I hope you enjoyed this video, even though I didn't have a lot of really glowing recommendations that I could share with you. Let me know if you've read any of the books that I read here, and whether you enjoyed them more than I did, or whether you have the same opinion as me. And yeah, I hope to see you very soon in the next one. Have a wonderful, marvelous day. Happy reading. Take care. Bye-bye.